Mantegna's years as a struggling, unknown actor are behind him. In the months to come, movie audiences will see him in Family Prayers and the already controversial Body of Evidence, which also stars Madonna and Willem Dafoe. He's in New York to complete filming on a new feature, Searching for Bobby Fischer, and we're pleased that he's able to join us this evening. Welcome. Pleasure to have you here.
My pleasure.
Tell me first about Searching for Bobby Fischer, because I am fascinated by what people are saying. I keep reading Charles Krauthammer, for example, writing saying that this is really painful for people who love chess, that, Bobby Fischer, because it says something about not coming back, that this is a moral in this not to come back. But what's the film about?
Well, he's more like an allegory. I mean,
it's not about what's going on in Yugoslavia.
No, not at all. In fact, but it is a true story. It's based on a book that Fred Waitskin wrote, which is the character I'm playing, who, here in New York, he's a sports writer here in New York, and he has, at this time, his son was 8 years old, and at that time they discovered that this boy had this gift for chess and was a chess prodigy. And so it's really the story of this family coming to grips with a boy who has this kind of gift, and now what do you do? How much do you nurture it? How much don't you? How far do you push? Do you pull?
And do they have any particular gifts themselves in chess? I mean, was there any reason that they understood this, or was it somehow they realized they've got this special kid and they've got to somehow understand how to...
It is more that, and I think that's probably often the case with gifted children, that sometimes it's not necessarily a logical progression, like the father was a chess champion, and so the kid picked it up. No, it just kind of came out of the blue, and so now they have to deal with it.
How do they explain something like that, this kind of gift?
I don't know. I mean, we don't really explain it in the film, and it's just because that's really not what it's about. We're not trying to address the phenomenon of why is a person a prodigy or takes to something like that. But in my case, I have two small girls, and I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth if they come up with something like
right,
this.
Right. Then tell me about Body of Evidence with Madonna and Willem Dafoe.
Well, it's basically a courtroom drama, and I'll play the prosecutor, and Willem is the defense attorney, and Madonna is the prime suspect in a murder.
Who's directing?
The director is a German director named Uli Edel, who directed Last Exit in Brooklyn, and very good. It's very much a Germanic kind of stylized kind of film, actually, even though it's an American courtroom drama.
Is there some business about what kind of rating this film is going to get?
Well, yeah, there's
because
been some...
of Willem in bed with Madonna kind of stuff?
There's certainly some sexual aspects to the film, and it's inherent to the script. In other words, it's not just a tacit romance. It's they're dealing with just sex for sex's sake. In other words, this is an integral part of what her character is in terms of the storyline and in the way this murder or death has happened. So, I mean, they're not going to put on a double bill with Bambi, I'll tell you, that's for sure. But I think it is inherent to the story that it has this almost like a fairly kinky sexual kind of atmosphere around this one character.
Yeah. How was she to work with?
Well, I've worked with her before. I did
That's
the play.
Right. You did the play, right?
Speed the Plow with her.
Right. And she and
Ron Silver.
Ron Silver, right.
So we had a history in terms of working together, and I like her. I mean, we get along very well. I mean, I think we relate on a level of, I think we relate more on the level that she's the Italian girl from Detroit, not the Italian guy from
Cicero, Illinois.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think we come to some common ground there, and I think we have a very good relationship.
You can work every moment, can't you? I mean, if you got 3 films being released now, and then you had Godfather 3, and you had Bugsy last year, right? I mean, it's just, they must be piling up for you.
Well, in this business, it's more a case of when it rains, it pours, and when it doesn't rain, it's a desert. Yeah. For the first 15 years of my career. But you haven't had a desert for a while, though. But after you broke through, after you break through, you hope not, at least. Yeah. You go through a period of where I spent 15 years not knowing where the next job was coming from. And so for the last 8 or so, it's been more a pick and choose kind of thing. So it's either feast or famine.
Can you go see, have you been to see Glenn Ross?
The film?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Obviously there's a reason.
Well, no, I'll see the film.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a character in a play.
You created Ricky. I mean,
yeah, I created the role of Ricky Roma originally doing the play, but that was 8 years ago. And actually, at that time, David Mamet I remember distinctly him coming in my dressing room. I was still doing the play in 1984.
Yeah.
And he says, Joe, I got to tell you, I sold the rights to the play to a movie producer today. Most likely you'll never get to play the part because I know he already has Al Pacino in mind. And this was 8 years ago. And he says, but I'll tell you something. He says, I won't do these 2 movies without you. And on that day, he put the scripts of House of Games, and things changed in my dressing room
and
table.
House of Games was a breakthrough, was it? Or?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that happened 2 years after he put the script on my dressing room table.
Yeah.
So I had no, I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say, gee, I would have loved to have had a crack at doing the role in the movie.
Of course you would.
But that doesn't always happen. I mean, Kathy Bates did 2 incredible plays here in New York and never wound up
Frankie
doing
and Johnny, one of them, wasn't it?
And
what was the other one?
Night Mother.
Night Mother, right. But is it hard for you? I mean, obviously you would have liked to have done it, but is it hard? I mean, have you not seen it because of that?
Maybe partly, in the sense that I think I just would like everything to kind of settle down a bit in terms of what I'm doing. I mean, I'm still involved doing this movie
so
right
every
now.
jerk doing a show doesn't ask you about it, too.
Well, also I just want to get through this thing I'm doing, and then I'm sure I'll see it. But it's, for me, it was a very, very important time in my life and my career to have done that role, and I did it for over a year and a half. So it has, in a way, it lives with me in terms of my memories of that production. Yeah. So in a way, I'll have to just kind of clear my mind and then just take the film for what it is and realize it's a whole other thing.
I saw Jack Lemmon, who's also in it, along with Alex Baldwin and others. I've forgotten who else, but Jack Lemmon was saying it was the most incredibly fun film to make. He had been part of it a long time. You and David Mamet, everybody wants to write. Mamet writes about the relationship. You have spoken on this broadcast about the relationship. I mean, he, in a sense, are you somehow, how would you characterize what you think he says to you? I mean, when he thinks character in his mind, do you somehow, because of your voice, give something to him?
I don't know. I mean, I hope so. I mean, it's probably part of the reason it maybe is a unique relationship is a lot of it's just geographic, and a lot of it is just
fate. You grew up in
fate.
Chicago.
We grew up in Chicago.
Cicero, Illinois.
Well, I grew up in Cicero. He grew up on the south side of Chicago. We're exactly the same age. We're just 2 weeks apart in age. So in other words, while we didn't know each other as little children and had planned this whole thing all along, we've had very similar life experiences. And here's a man who writes very closely about his life experiences. In other words, he's drawing from all those years that he spent in Chicago, and he writes of those types of people and of that world, and I lived that world.
Yeah, but he says that, though. I mean, that's exactly what he says. I mean, he says that he doesn't think of someone like, in his own mind, an Italian-American from the East Coast. He thinks of you, because you are what he knew, in a sense, and your experiences of the experiences that he writes of, which is what you're saying.
Well, again, it's like a lot of it is being in the right place at the right time, and growing up as an actor also, I was used to looking at scripts where 90% of the scripts that one did in acting school and high school and college were written by East Coast playwrights, the whole Broadway circuit. So here was a Chicago guy trying to, make sense of, well, they're talking about the subway system here, and they're talking about the Bronx and Brooklyn here. And so as an actor, I was constantly adapting to that world. So it was kind of nice not having.
How are you changing as an actor? I mean, do you get better? Does all this experience, it's always been hard for me to calibrate what experience does for you. It certainly makes you more confident. It certainly gives your instincts a certain sureness, I guess.
You get older, Charlie. You don't have to put the wrinkle lines on and stuff like that, and you don't have to pretend to sound like a 45-year-old guy or whatever, because all of a sudden you are. I don't know. I mean, I would like to think that it's, in a way, it's like sports. I mean, it's there's maybe you lose a little bit of speed, but you make up for it in the experience, and then hopefully the career is longer.
Intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a funny thing. I mean, I don't know if better is a funny word. I don't know if if you can, if it's more than just that. Just as in life, I think that's why I respect older people so much. I mean, the older I get, the more I realize the wisdom in my elders. And it's just that kind of thing. Is the longer you've been around, the more you know, and it's.
With that great story about the guy who talks about his father. He said, "Gosh, when I was 15, my father didn't know anything, and then when I was 21, I realized he knew everything. How much he learned in 6 years."
Right, it was Mark Twain. Right.
Yes. Is there anything you want that you don't have? I mean, in a sense of this career, has it given to you more than you ever expected from it?
It's given me all I ever hoped to get from it.
And what is that?
It's the ability to play at the top of my game. In other words, to run with the big dogs,
Yeah.
to play in the major leagues. That's, I think, all anyone can hope for. In other words, I can sit back and or aspire or pray or wish that, oh God, I hope I win 15 Oscars and I hope I'm, acclaimed as the greatest actor who ever lived. That's kind of silly stuff. But I think the realistic thing, or hopefully realistic, is that I hope I can get a chance that I will at least be considered to play the great roles, to work with the great actors, to work with the great directors. And I have been fortunate enough to get
like you get to go to bat against the
exactly.
20-game winner.
Not everybody's going to get in the Hall of Fame. Not everybody's going to become the MVP. But if you make it to the majors, then you'll go as far as your talent and luck and everything else will take you. I've at least been able to get to that that level of the major leagues, and I feel infinitely grateful about that. So to desire more than that, I think would be a little, could be tempting.
And so therefore
fatal.
everything beyond that too becomes, like, for the lack of a better expression, becomes a dividend, a dessert.
Absolutely. People
Gravy.
often ask me, they'll say in interviews, sometimes they'll say, do you feel like you've paid your dues, that now it's over? And my answer always is, I feel like I'm in a very exclusive club, and if you stop paying your dues, they'll kick you out of the club.
Yeah.
So,
and paying your dues is what?
I think always trying to perform your work at the highest level possible, just as an athlete. You can't dog it. You know what I mean? You just can't say, well, I'm here, I'm just going to kind of dog it.
I know. I don't understand that when the people, they don't come, all the sports writers would say, or the sports broadcasters would say, he came to play, or she came to play. I mean, of course they came to play. I mean, you would assume that would be the least you would expect. You said an interesting thing, too, in terms of looking at roles. You said, what you look for, is it well written? Tell me what's a well written role?
Well, the older I get, I think the more simple I try to make my requirements in terms of making that evaluation. In other words, I'll read the script, and I'll usually know after that first read that, yes, this is really a wonderful thing, and I see in this character something I could really identify with and something I can connect with, or I don't. And it's as simple as that. And so once you can, make that identification and say, wow, this is just like reading a good book. You know it's a good book, you know if it's a bad book.
And pretty much you can tell reasonably quick. I mean, I normally don't find that I wait 2/3 of the way through waiting for it to get good. And if it isn't good,
that's right.
It's never going to get good.
Yeah, maybe experience helps there as well, too. In other words, if you've done it year after year and you've kind of been doing this as your livelihood, I think you do get a little better at that, hopefully.
I want to ask about a couple of people you've worked with because you've had such a wonderful experience. One, I mean, is Woody Allen. Much talk about him. Have you seen Husband and Wives?
No, I haven't seen the film, but actually I saw Woody. I was coming home from the set of the film I'm doing now, and I saw these other trailers on the street down in the village where I was working, and I saw him standing in the street, and I had my driver said, stop, and I jumped out, and we had actually a great conversation.
Yeah, how's he doing?
He's doing good. I mean,
this is not easy.
I would imagine not. I mean, obviously he's going through a whole thing in his personal life. But, we didn't get into that. And
he's filming the new film with Diane Keaton, has taken the role of
Diane Keaton and Alan Alda were there that day.
What's his genius as a director?
I think
he doesn't direct a lot, does he? I mean, he doesn't.
No.
He doesn't come in and say, this is what I want you to do, and this is the way to do it.
No, he's pretty much a hands-off kind of director. I think his genius is this. If you were able to define his genius, he probably wouldn't be as much a genius as he is. In other words, he's a genius like a lot of the great artists are, whether it's a Picasso or whether it's a great musician. Right. It's this thing they do. He does this thing in a unique way that no one else does, and that is his genius. I don't think you can label it or duplicate it. He's a specific individual.
Yeah. It's great to see you. Come back anytime.
Thanks, Charlie.
Very much. Thank you. We'll be back in a moment, and we'll talk about some of the movies that are already out, including Glengarry Glen Ross, and Elvis Mitchell will be here to offer his own experienced analysis. Stay with us.